I knew I wasn't alone in my feelings of being disillusioned by the church. I'm generally tired of institutions at every level, but there was something so personal about the way religion affected me that I couldn't just shake off or really express cohesively. It was such a big part of my childhood, and I internalized a lot of shame because of it. I asked a few of my friends about their relationship with the church to see if I was alone in this feeling. How do we talk about this yearning for a connection with God, for spiritual peace, while also recognizing that some institutions just hold us back?
I don't really think I identify with any religion. And I don't think that in the context of religion, I have any particular thing I identify with.
So I think within the context of religion, I don't really identify specifically as religious. I would say I'm more agnostic and spiritual. I do believe that there is something outside of just or at least there's a very strong possibility that there's something outside of just this plane of existence on earth that we have, that there are maybe afterlives and spirits, but so that's what differentiates me from maybe an atheist.
In terms of religion, I don't think I would identify as a Christian in the way that most people practice it, but I still do believe in God, and I still do have my personal spiritual practices, but I don't closely follow any particular religion. I grew up in the church, Sunday school every single morning, every single Sunday, youth group, Wednesday church, but now I don't really attend church just because I don't in the churches that I've been to, the environment in terms of everyone, not everyone, but it feels very holier than thou in a sense, and I don't think that's the point of religion, so I kind of just strayed away from that aspect. But in terms of belief in faith systems themselves, I feel I still have those.
I don't subscribe to the idea that there's maybe one God, for example, within Christianity, the idea of one male God, father that we all have to that we all look up to and is supposed to protect us. I think most religions have their own way of conceptualizing afterlives and conceptualizing morality in life, and I think that none of them is specifically wrong. So I guess I would say that within religion I'm agnostic, but also there are parts of spirituality that I do identify with, growing up within the Catholic Church, I like the idea of saints and lighting candles for saints. I also identify with the idea of an afterlife and reuniting with your loved ones in the afterlife. That's really important to me. So, or maybe reincarnation.
I grew up Catholic, and I did my first communion, and I was baptized, but I never did the confirmation. And I don't think we ever were practicing it a lot, even though I did do my first communion. Those 2 years of taking the communion classes were the only times I was actively going to church because it was required by the communion classes. But then my family and I just stopped kind of after that.
I strayed from closely following a particular religion and more just doing what feels right for me.
I did grow up within the Catholic Church, and growing up within the Catholic Church is really difficult because there's a lot of homophobia and a lot of purity culture and a lot of other colonial things that you internalize being part of the church, that I've had to really unpack in recent years because my family is very religious and they all are very connected to the Catholic Church. And I think for them it does work, but for me personally it's just been more damaging, and for them it's been more healing. So because of that, I've kind of stepped away from that connection to the church. Maybe there's some things that I still practice, I do Christmas, and I do appreciate saints, and I do appreciate La Virgen, the Virgin Mary, but I don't really I'm not really tied to the Catholic Church as a religion. I don't really care that much about going to mass, especially when you feel rejected by a place. It becomes kind of damaging, especially for me, emotionally and as myself, to be put into that space all the time, because it's been more damaging than healing. So I'd rather, if I were to even practice that religion, it be on my own terms and not as institutionalized.
I don't think I'm away from all spiritual practices, but I definitely have strayed away from like structured religion.
And I kind of feel like after religion, for me, is this time after growing up Catholic and like not really like still being a Catholic. And I think a lot of people could identify with that, of like growing in a particular religion, and maybe you still do some practices like the cultural ones or whatever, but not being an active member in that like religious community.
I think after religion can also mean, what does it mean to have religion that's not so institutionalized, like in the ways that like at least Christianity and Catholicism are, and that have such strict rules that are very dogmatic. Like what it would be like to have religion that doesn't live within those bounds, that allows for more flexibility. And I think that's really interesting. So yeah.
And all of this rang true. Once I was able to step away from religion as a man-made institution, I felt like I could open myself up to what God wanted me to see and appreciate. It was personal now, instead of a familial obligation or a way to keep up appearances. What is after religion if not something wholly undefinable? Something that connects all of us while remaining private and personal to each individual.